Washington football. Woo! Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Burgundy Zone. I am your host, Kyle, and I am joined by my co-host, Michael Hall. But we are joined for the first time by former Washington, I can't even say lineman because you played so many positions, Mr. Lorenzo Alexander. Thank you so much for joining us tonight, sir. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, enjoying the family, enjoying my time away from the game. It's really been cool just to kind of sit back and watch the guys play a game I did for so long. And, I follow the Washington football team loosely. Last year I had an opportunity to watch it much more because I was actually covering them, which was fun. Hopefully these guys can right the ship and kind of get back on the right path, right? At least finish the season strong.
Yeah, and speaking of the right path, the Burgundy Zone is part of the Frederick Podcast Network at listenfrederick.com. You can find out all the details there. Now, Lorenzo, my first question to you is, who is the best quarterback you ever faced? I know, obviously, you went to Cal. You went to the same college as Aaron Rodgers. You guys have a little bit of relationship there. In your opinion, it has to be Tom Brady, right?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on what you're looking at, right? As far as playmaker, I mean, Lamar Jackson was a monster to go against and be able to handle what he was able to do with his legs and getting out of the pocket and just how dynamic he is. Obviously, Tom Brady from a mental aspect, him knowing the game so well, it was really hard to disguise and try to confuse and make him throw you a ball. And so those guys were really competitive. And then obviously, you mentioned my man, A-Rod, had a chance to play against him a couple of times. And he does a great job of molding the two. He's more athletic than people give him credit to and being able to get out of the pocket. And then obviously he can beat you inside as well with that great arm talent. So those are probably the top three guys. I mean, it's a ton of guys I've played against: Peyton, Drew, some very dynamic players, and obviously Hall of Famers. But those guys definitely stick out in my mind through the course of my career.
Right, and speaking of guys you went up against on a daily basis, one of those guys was Trent Williams. Some call him one of the best left tackles in the game. Probably
Ever.
Future Hall of
Ever.
Yeah, ever. I was going to say, future Hall of Famer. How was it going against him every day in practice?
It's a monster. He's one of those guys that you try to avoid, right? Like, oh, should I wait for the next one? Should I put one of these young guys up here? Because, with Trent, he's going to give it to you every time. Obviously he has that great size, athletic ability, very intelligent, but then he just has that dog mentality. And I'm not even saying it as a cliche. He really wants to destroy you every time he competes. And that's what makes him great. That's what takes him to the next level. He's not complacent with just being good. He wants to be dominant. And so it obviously prepared me to go against other guys. I faced Trent. When did we draft Trent? 2009, 10, somewhere in there?
11, I believe. I think
is Kerrigan it 11?
He was 2010. I think Kerrigan was 11.
Yeah. Kerrigan is 11 for sure. So, 10, 11, 12, 3 years going against one of the best allowed me to, become the pass rusher that I am today, because oftentimes I was the guy because guys didn't want to go against him that had to face him. And so he prepared me in many ways, in the run game, in the pass game, and obviously towards the end of my career, because of all those reps that I got to do against him in practice, allowed me to thrive and show up and be a playmaker for the Buffalo Bills.
Yeah, and one player that's on this defense right now, Landon Collins, obviously you are familiar with him. He is currently transitioning to a different position, playing more in the box where he's comfortable at. Coming from you, a person that changed so many positions in his NFL career, I mean, tight end, defensive tackle, defensive end, outside linebacker, middle linebacker, how hard is it for a player to make that change, and do you think Landon is better off because of it?
I definitely think he's better off because of it. Obviously some of his athleticism has waned, mainly because of the injuries that he suffered. Anything that done to your legs, really do, I think, an Achilles, right? Maybe 2 years ago.
Yeah.
That's really hard to bounce back from. And then obviously to get back to where you were, especially as an older player and playing in space the way the game is. And he's traditionally, I would call him more of a box safety anyway. And so this transition is actually going to benefit him, being on less skilled guys, tight ends, running backs. I think it's really going to allow him to thrive because he is a physical player. So I don't worry about that. Oftentimes you worry about that from a DB moving forward. Can he handle the physical play? But that's who he was as a safety. He was a dominant force in the run game, blitzer. He was able to do those type of things. So it's definitely going to benefit him. The only thing that he probably is going to have a little bit of a learning curve of is obviously dealing with guards and tackles more often. Oftentimes, because as a safety, you're not counted in the box. You're more getting cracked by receivers. And so having to deal with those type of guys and those bigger bodies on a consistent basis, really just honing in on his fundamentals, hitting the sled and making sure his timing is right. And he utilizes his hands on a more consistent basis because those blocks happen pretty quick when you're down there, 4 to 5 yards away from the ball, opposed to maybe 7 to 8.
Right. And sticking with the defensive side of the ball, a guy that we drafted 2 years ago was Chase Young. Obviously, a lot of expectations came in with him being the number 2 overall pick. He became the Rookie of the Year last year. This year, not really the sack totals. A lot of people kind of not really questioning his motor, but kind of questioning, I guess, if he really put the work in to kind of make that second-year jump. I don't know if you've watched him as much. I know you probably watched him against Buffalo, but what have you seen so far that maybe he can kind of improve on to kind of make that next jump to one of those elite guys?
I think most guys have a sophomore slump or, and the slump is a bad word, kind of fall back into it. Because the first year, a lot of people don't know what to expect. He's a great talent and ability, and they don't have a lot of tape on you, haven't seen you before. And so guys and teams evolve because now, this guy does X, Y, Z at a high level. So let's take away that and let's make him do something else. And so because he had that success early on, you don't necessarily know what to work on, right? He was dominant, Rookie of the Year. And so this year, he'll have a better idea of parts of his game that he needs to develop to be more consistently dominant. Maybe developing another pass rush move or two, understanding how to rush the passer from a mental aspect. Obviously, his athleticism is always going to be there. So he's always going to be around the ball and be in the fray of things when things are going down just because of his motor and his personality and the dynamic that he brings to a game. But those little integral things that allow you to get there a split second faster for a sack or a strip sack, right? The split second to get off a block or to anticipate what's coming based on the down and distance and a set that they give you. Those things come with age, and he's going to develop into that. And like I said, you have to go through a little bit of adversity, I think, sometimes to really realize that. And once you start developing that practice of growing in the offseason, and with maturity, you become more intentional and aware of your shortcomings, how to prepare, how to grow and become better. And so he's just in the natural process of most guys that play in the NFL and have to adapt or you die. But I have great confidence in him being able to evolve into the player that we saw last year and much more than what he ever displayed because of the maturity from a football IQ perspective.
Yeah, and then from that shirt that you're wearing that says "Hustle Harder," it gives me a thought in my head about an Iron Man, and you played next to one, in London Fletcher, and kind of a lot of people have talked this offseason about him possibly being a Hall of Famer. Do you think he is, right?
There's no possible to it. He not, I won't even say unfortunately, but he obviously played in the era with Ray Lewis where he got all the shine. But you put up those guys' numbers next to each other, identical. It's right. I mean, it's right on par, right? Yeah, Ray Lewis just was more of that in-your-face, louder persona. His team was really good during those years, right? So he was always on the national spotlight. Fletcher, unfortunately, was in Buffalo for 6 and then came to us in Washington for another 6 or 7 and probably made the playoffs twice. And so if you're not on that national level, people don't necessarily see you. And so you have to go back. And if you ever watch film and understand how football is played and what London brought to it, it's a no-brainer in my mind. And probably a lot of guys that he played with or played against, as well as coaches that know that he is a Hall of Famer. Now, those guys aren't the ones that get the vote who gets in, right? It's writers and the media who don't necessarily watch all the games and really don't understand football to a certain level. And therefore, that's why you always get, it's easy to vote, a Megatron in, right?
Right.
But guys that are that dominant but don't have that type of star behind them should be in there as well. And They just don't understand the dynamic. And it even goes to some special teamers. You know, I'm a special teams guy, and I think a guy like B. Mitch should be in, right?
Yeah.
Steve Tasker should be in. But media members don't understand the impact that those guys have on the game. And so those guys will never get in because of their lack of understanding as far as the impact that those plays led to wins. And so it's unfortunate. Hopefully Fletch gets in. And there's a lot of other deserving guys that ought to be in as well because they did change or make an impact at their position at a significant level better than anybody else, you know, during their times while they were playing.
Yeah, glad you mentioned B-Mitch because I want to see B-Mitch get in as well because those two guys, like you said, London Fletcher and B-Mitch, like those guys deserve to be in the Hall of Fame. They got the resume to go with it as well. But speaking of a guy that's kind of on the uprise right now is Terry McLaurin. You mentioned guys like London Fletcher didn't get a lot of recognition nationally because maybe the team's not doing as well. We look at Terry McLaurin like that around here is where
we do.
He's one of those upper echelon type of guys in the league. One of the guys that got voted a team captain in his rookie year or his second year. And was there anyone that you played with maybe as a young guy that kind of the team gravitated to and kind of took on that captain role as a teammate?
Ooh, as a young player? Oh, man. It's hard something to jump out. Tremaine Edmonds, you know, in Buffalo, you know, that's the most recent guy that I played with where a lot of guys gravitated to. Josh Allen would fall into that mold too, but he's obviously a quarterback in that position, just wheels that. But I would say Tremaine Edmonds. Man, I have to go back in my bag for Washington. It's just that's so far ago, a long time ago. almost 10 years at this point, you know what I mean? The last time that I suited up. But, you know, I played with a lot of great teammates, guys that could have been captains. I think about a guy, you know, like Kedrick Ghostin, but we had great leadership. So he's not going to ever be voted captain when you have London Fletcher's in the room, right? But that was a guy to me that was young, mature, you know, 6th-round draft pick, but earned his keep, you know, while the time he was there. Could have easily been a captain his second or third year as well. And so I guess in some ways it just shows you where this team is at in their development because you do have a young guy being a captain. Not that it's a bad thing because I think Terry's a different type of dude. He is mature beyond his years. But when you have a second year, this normally means that there's a deficiency somewhere else in the leadership and the talent that you have on that collectively as far as building, you know, a team that's going to be able to compete week in and week out. You know, it's great to have youth. That's the future. But, you know, obviously the NFL is about what are you doing for me lately? And I think that has to do with some of the trials that they're going through. And as this team develops and grows experience and Terry becomes a better leader, Chase Young becomes a better leader because they go through these hard times, then you'll start seeing some consistency and them being able to talk to certain things because they lived it.
Now, to wrap this up, Lorenzo, I have a couple of questions for you. My first one being is like, ever since that Mike Shanahan conversation that you had with him, this has been a question I've been wanting to ask you. And what was that conversation like between you and Coach Shanahan? Because at the time, like, all the fans were like, no, don't do it. Like, it was something that we did not want to see. The ace of the special teams to walk away, the leader that you were and what you brought to this locker room. What was that conversation like? Was it emotional for you?
Yeah, it was for me. I don't know about for them. You know, it's a business aspect. You know, I was invested. You know, I had been there 7 years. That's where I got my first start. I mean, it really wasn't a conversation at all. And I think that's why, in a lot of ways, I left with a bitter taste in my mouth because there was no closure. There was no reasoning. There was no, this is what we think, and this is why we're moving. They just kind of did it and was passing the buck back and forth between head coach and GM. But, you know, things come around, you know, things happen for a reason. And for me, as, you know, a man of faith, I really think God wanted me to get up out of there so I could grow in some other ways.
Yep.
Obviously have a fruitful career on the back end and really get to experience what a good organization looks like, being around some other great leaders from ownership to head coaches that I probably wouldn't have had the opportunity to experience in that environment that had been created, you know, and you see a lot of that stuff coming to light right now. And so it was, as much as I wanted to stay, it was probably most beneficial that I didn't stay. And so it definitely turned out to be a blessing. And I've grown so much for it. But I definitely love DC. Really wanted to stay there and live there for the rest of my career as far as I was concerned. But obviously God had different plans for me, and I'm better off for it.
Now, and to run off that, you had talked about how Ashburn back then and everything, but I'm not going to ask you to go into specifics. I know you're not in the building now, but just from a bird's eye view, do you think that things have gotten better in Ashburn since you were there?
Yeah, I mean, you got Ron Rivera there, right? You got Jason Wright there, so it's gotten better because you have leadership in there that I know personally, based on personal experiences, and then other people that I know and trust are in there trying to create the right environment, the right space for people to thrive and grow and really be productive in this league. Now, with that, it takes everybody, right? It can't just be the president and the head coach. It takes ownership. It takes, everybody in the building to really create that culture from top down, because that's ultimately how it works. And so until it is everybody's, purpose, right, to make that organization first class and not just doing it because they're trying to get through a hard time, right? There's a difference there. It has to become who you are and what your purpose about doing things the right way versus doing the right thing so you can then get back into the dark because the light is now off you. So that mentality has to continue from top down, but things have to come to light first, I think, completely, until it can really take the turn from an organizational structural standpoint to really thrive like we know this Washington football team is capable of. Because when that team is winning, I think it's just better for football. Obviously, it's better for DC and that community. And, hopefully they're able to get through this rough patch and eventually return to the greatness that we once knew, especially under a man like Joe Gibbs.
Yeah, and I know I added one on, but just because you gave a great answer. But this is my last one. I promise.
All good.
But as a former player, when you do look at this Washington football team, when you have the chance to, what do you see?
I see bits and pieces of the makings of something great. And we talked about a couple of the guys, right? We talked about Mclaurin. We talked about Chase Young. Obviously, that defensive line, they have a lot of great players. And there's some guys that I'm also familiar with, just throughout the team. Logan Thomas, who I played with in Buffalo. So I think they have some ingredients. Obviously, quarterback is the most essential. And until that is solidified, nothing ever substantial will really occur unless you find lightning in the bottle, similar to last year, right? Which that's hard to reproduce year in and year out based on the way the National Football League plays football these days. So they have to continue to steady the ship. I think you have the right leadership in place. Continue to have patience at the top because, just in the world we're in, owners oftentimes, when the success isn't immediate, that you want to shift and move on. Right. But given the situation and everything that Ron and Jason have had to go through, they need to have a little bit longer of a runway to put this team in the most advantageous spot. When you were talking about developing culture, when you're talking about bringing in the right individuals in the front office and on the team to emulate that culture, right? But also be very talented at what they do. It takes time, and that doesn't happen overnight. But again, I think Ron and Jason are the right people to lead the ship, and they're starting, and they have the pieces there of guys that are great football players, great men, and that people are willing to follow in the right direction. It's just going to take some growing pains and get through, maybe another year and a half of what we've been seeing.
Dude, I need to listen to you every Monday after our loss, Lorenzo. That was fantastic. I can't thank you enough for joining us tonight, Lorenzo. I know you're very, very busy out in the West Coast and making some time out for us. I can't thank you enough. Do you have anything coming up soon that fans should keep an eye out for?
Well, I'm always in the community. Obviously, I'm in Phoenix now. I'm doing a food drive currently for low-income families in the South Phoenix community. Oh, that's awesome. If people want to get involved, you can go to lorenzoalexander.org and go to the donate page, and you can earmark it for food drive. Oh. I know these people aren't in that DC community, but hey, we are all one community, right? We talk about football being family, and so we got to take care of everybody. And so that's what I got going on now. I'm in grad school, I do some other things, but always looking to serve and give back and using the platform that I was blessed with the opportunity of playing in the NFL. And I definitely appreciate, the Washington football team and the fan base.
I can't thank you enough. Hopefully Julie gives you a call soon, linking you up with your old buddy Logan Paulson.
Yeah, for sure. I got to get with my guy. That's one of the greatest dudes that I've ever been around and got a chance to play with.
That's our dude right there. Lorenzo, I can't thank you enough, sir. I hope you go and enjoy your night. And until next time, sir, I wish you the best of luck and God bless.
Appreciate you, fam.
All right, brother. That was fantastic. I mean, I'm telling you right now, man, I have been waiting for years for that interview.
I'm glad he gave that answer where he was like, we got the right leadership, the right pieces in place. Like you said, he needs to be like, I need to just replay that every single Monday after a loss. It's just to be like, okay, things will get right. Things will be okay. Things will be okay, Mike.
Right. And last week we forgot to do game beers and keg stands. You know that?
Yeah.
So let's do it this week finally. Okay, everybody. Let's not hold this back. What, in your honest opinion? So what do you want to do first? Do you want to do game beers first because it's probably going to be less than keg stands?
Yeah. We can do game beers first.
All right. So who would be getting your game beer? Who is somebody that's on the Washington football team despite the loss, the 24-10 loss to the Green Bay Packers? Who, in your opinion, deserves to kick their feet up, enjoy a nice cold beverage because they played their butt off yesterday?
Well, this is going to be an easy one. You got to give it to Jonathan Allen. 2 sacks. I think he had 3 or 4 QB pressures, a couple QB hits, a couple tackles in the run game. I mean, obviously, number 93 was just flashing all over the screen. He was a standout on defense yesterday. And to be quite honest, he's been the standout on defense the whole season. So, my man J.A., kick back your feet. You deserve it. Crack a beer. Drink up, buddy.
One of mine is going to go for Cameron Curl. He played 100% of the snaps. We've been calling for it. There was a couple plays in particular where there was one play where he's lining up a strong safety, and they end up running a trap. So they pull 2 linemen to the right side. Cam Curl comes down into the box, stays outside of those pulling guards, comes around them, and then tackles the running back at the line of scrimmage in a diving sort of sense. I thought he was phenomenal in the game yesterday. He was a huge point of emphasis for them. I think he's the second leading tackler behind Landon Collins, who he's sort of replacing in a way. But second leading tackler, it means he's doing something right. Cam Curl continues to be the best DB on the field by far. Anyone else is getting your game beer?
Yeah, I mean, obviously we could say Terry, but I mean, Terry deserves a bottle of champagne after every game because he just balls out every game. But I got to go with another defensive lineman second on the D line, Montez Sweat. I think he had the highest PFF grade of all the whole defense, definitely of all the rushers on the defense yesterday. Again, another guy that got another sack. Obviously, he's been quietly throughout the season been racking up the sack totals. He's not double digits yet. I think he's projected to finish with like 10 to 12, something like that so far. But another guy again was in Aaron Rodgers' face in the first half, had him on the run, was dominant in the run game like he has been since his rookie year. So again, Montez Sweat, kick back. Hopefully, come back next week and bounce back another great week against Denver. But this week, get to enjoy game beer.
Yeah, and my last one's going to go for Benjamin St. Juste. I thought he played a fantastic game yesterday. I know he had the pass interference on Davante Adams. I was on Rio's pod, the Rambling About Washington podcast, earlier today, and I talked about that Benjamin St. Juste penalty on Davante Adams, and he had no reason to hold on to Davante Adams' arm.
Really did.
Like, it literally was looked uncomfortable for him. Like,
he went like this.
Yeah, exactly. And so it was almost like he got into his head too much. But I thought Benjamin St. Juste was phenomenal yesterday. I thought he was the best DB on the field. Going forward, I would hope that he is the number 1 corner, and then William Jackson slides in number 2, and then start to feel things out with Kendall Fuller. Let's see what we go from there. But yeah, absolutely Benjamin St. Juste. But now let's go into our keg stand. Who is a player that deserves a keg stand, that deserves to just do something they don't want to do for, let's say it's a minute-long keg stand? Who are we forcing to do that?
Sheesh. I will go with. I have 2, and I'm trying to think which one I should go with. I don't really have like a person in general. Just the whole moment of Taylor Heineke, just literally.
Just say Taylor.
That.
Just say Taylor.
Yeah. All right, Taylor. You got to do the keg stand, which you probably won't mind.
Yeah, he probably love that.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, come on, man. Like, I know you're trying to protect yourself. I know the coaches are probably in your ear, like, hey. Well, there's only 2 of you guys left right now, so like, kind of protect yourself, whatever. But there was no need to just act like you just got sniped Call of Duty style and just fell to the ground. Could have just waltzed right into the end zone. But hey, you live and you learn. Hopefully, again, you didn't really have a bad game overall per se, but you did have another bad turnover. So You got a keg standard, bro.
Yeah, the curse of Deshaun Jackson just stays with this football team, just not wanting to cross the ball over the goal line, apparently. Absolutely ridiculous. Taylor Heinicke is a great kick stand. I think he deserves it. This was one of the worst red zone defenses in the league, if not the worst, and they couldn't capitalize at all. 0 for 4 in the red zone, and putrid, in my personal opinion. Now, who's somebody that deserves a keg stand besides Taylor Heinicke? Ooh, I don't know really where to go with that. I'll say Landon. I know Landon was the leading tackler on the team. I get it. But he continues to lose things and not have situational awareness and play with confidence. I know he has good tackling ability, and when they put him in the box, he did really well this week. I will acknowledge that. But I still believe he deserves a keg stand. There were a couple plays that he gave up that he shouldn't be giving up, dude. It just should not be happening. Those are not routine professional plays. And he makes it up. But if I'm going to nitpick, I'm going to have to, because it's not like I can go with the offensive line. They did a great job yesterday. You can't say Ricky Seals-Jones or any of the wide receivers. You can't say Terry for the drop touchdown pass, by the way. I wanted to get your opinion on that, because that's on Terry. Terry had a fantastic game, but I don't believe that was on Taylor. That's on Terry.
No, 100% it's on Terry. And look, Terry, obviously, Lorenzo Alexander just talked about the stand-up guy. Everyone knows just like Terry's a stand-up guy, high character guy, so he's going to put it on himself. But at the end of the day, that's definitely on him. He tried to pretty much breadbasket alligator it. If he would have just simply, I know he was falling to the ground and kind of like diving, but
yeah,
if he would have just, put his hands up, spider webbed it like they teach you in Little League youth, like them saying catching the spider web, that would have been 6. But again, that's one of those things where Terry's got so many deposits in the greatness bank. He can afford one slip up here and there.
Yeah, and look, and I said this to Rio earlier, you almost wish on that play that he would have slid rather than dove, so he's like sliding and being able to catch that football instead of diving and trying to catch it like that. It's much more uncomfortable for you as a receiver. But I will say Taylor should have put that ball lower. Whenever you're on the run and you're trying to hit that corner pylon, you always want to put it low to give your guy a chance, because that defender coming over top is going to try to swipe at it. You know what I mean?
It's almost like Terry, I guess, kind of misjudged how much like oomph Taylor put on the ball.
Yeah, because he did put a little zip on that thing.
That's what I'm saying. I feel like he underestimated how much like zip Taylor put on it, because again, I think Taylor was kind of expecting like, oh, I'm just gonna like dive down, it's just gonna float into my arms, and next thing you know, he looks up and it's just doinking off his helmet. So yeah, like I said, so many deposits in the greatness bank, you can afford one slip up here and there.
Yeah, and I wanted to get your thoughts on the game yesterday in particular because of the red zone. Rio asked me earlier, like, what was going on with the offense? Why couldn't they do it? I want to get your opinion on the red zone. Why are they not translating to scoring points?
I mean, everyone that knows NFL knows that in the red zone, everything gets tighter, smaller windows. Obviously, the defense is going to tighten up a little bit more because a lot of teams are bend but don't break mentality. So once they get inside that red zone, it's like, all right, this is where we got to make our stop at. Hold them at least 3 points, if not a turnover. But yeah, I think it just comes down to it's a mixture of really everything. Quarterback, it's a mixture of the quarterback, the play calling, not enough playmakers out on the field due to injury, especially in the red zone. Like a guy like Logan Thomas is deadly in the red zone. A guy like De'Ami Brown can kind of work on the outside, hit that little go route to the back corner of the pylon. So, or obviously Curtis Samuel as well. But again, when you got Taylor Heinicke kind of underthrowing balls and just kind of making boneheaded decisions in the red zone, on top of the play calling, which is, I wouldn't call it suspect, but gets kind of sketchy between the 20s or inside the 20.
Yep.
And again, not as much playmakers outside of Terry to kind of work through your progressions and get open. Like not enough, like I said, not enough playmakers getting open, beating their man. So that's what it really comes down to me. But again, at the end of the day, you got to execute.
Yeah, and it's really puzzling because they had 195 yards rushing in this game. And generally, whenever you can run the ball well, whenever you have a tough offensive line that's gritty, that can run the football efficiently and consistently, that translates into points. And it almost seems like that's not happening in the red zone. Like it's almost abandoning. And that goes to Taylor's weaknesses because being in the red zone forces those DBs to be tighter. You have to play tighter coverages. So the throwing lanes are much more tight and they're very small. And so then it goes to Taylor's strengths of being able to run the football in that aspect, and they haven't been able to do that as of late. Every time they try to run the football in the red zone, it seems like they get stonewalled at the line of scrimmage. It completely blows my mind. And I think one thing that's probably biggest reasons as to why they're not doing well in the red zone right now. They're missing Logan Thomas crazy right now.
Yeah.
Now we are joined by our second guest of the show, and for the first time ever, we got our man, the guy, Mr. Big Douglas. I know, Doug, you're trying to get your audio working. How you doing, brother? Can you hear me? His audio is not connected. There he is. How you doing, Big Doug?
Hey, sorry, fellas. Let me get myself set up here. I got booted to the outside recording area, so I'm trying to get adjusted here for you.
No worries, Big Doug. And so we were just talking about the game and the red zone issues for the Washington football team and why they just cannot get points in the red zone currently. If, in your opinion, if you could point it on one thing, what is it?
I wish I could point it out. I'm not exactly sure what the problems are. I like the play calling. I mean, it was a touchdown, right? I mean, we need. Dude, and then it wasn't a touchdown, and Antonio Gibson fumbles on the 2-yard line. Yep. So again, people are going to be mad at the play calling. I get that. I've seen a lot of people say, why didn't we toss it high? We've got tall receivers. Well, listen, again, touchdowns were there. They just didn't have them. They didn't score them.
Yep, I think you're absolutely right about that. Now, let's move on to our fan questions. And, Doug, this one I'm going to start with you. This was fantastic. This is from our guy, Jeff Miles. He said, hypothetically speaking, if Tom Brady wins the MVP and the Super Bowl at the age of 49 but wants to leave the Bucs in the offseason, do you take him in Washington?
Yes. Make him 50.
Dude, exactly. That's what I'm saying. I'm right there with you, dude. Of course you bring in Tom Brady. And I know the kind of conversation has been brought up about people with this football team and getting into winning games. Do you need to draft a franchise quarterback, go out and get one of these rookie quarterbacks, or do you go the Buccaneers or Broncos route and you get a veteran quarterback in here? And I think you can do that with Tom Brady, especially at this age. The guy looks like he's regressing in age and not aging. He looks like he's 20 instead of 40, which is insane. What about you, Hall?
I mean, yeah, he's the GOAT. Why would you not want to bring in the GOAT? I mean, obviously, I know he would be up there in age at that point, but I mean, the dude eats avocado toast and avocado ice cream, so he's probably gonna play till he's like 80. So.
Absolutely. Now, our next fan question is from Tony Shivers. And if you guys are not on Twitter, if you're not on social media, you probably don't know that Deshaun Watson's name has been brought up again. Apparently, this trade is possibly going through with him and some team, most likely the Miami Dolphins, the one that's been linked the most, with the Eagles mixed in there. But he wants to know, Hall, what compensation would you be willing to give up for Deshaun Watson?
Oh, man. If I'm going to work back based off of, I guess, what Houston's reportedly
was it 3 first-rounders?
Yeah, like 3 first-rounders, 2 starters, or at least 1 starting player, but 2 starters. And I think maybe like a late pick somewhere added in there as well. I would definitely not give up 3 first-rounders. That's kind of ridiculous. But I don't think anyone's going to give up 3 first-rounders unless it's like the Eagles, who randomly have 3 first-round picks next year.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would give up obviously this year's pick in the first round. Probably another later pick in this now, like I don't know, maybe like a 3rd round pick for like this year. People are not gonna like this, but I'd probably have to give up. Well, he's gonna be gone anyway. Daron Payne, maybe throw him in there, and yeah, whatever 2023 pick, I guess, like a 2nd rounder or something like that, maybe. But 3 first-rounders is a little bit too steep. But again, like I said, unless you're Philly, who just randomly has 3 first-round picks next year, I don't think anyone's going to be giving up 3 first-round picks.
Now, you guys at home, in case you don't know, on Twitter, Hall has made it well known he wants Deshaun Watson here. He doesn't care about the off-field stuff, essentially. So just to give you some hindsight, yes, he would do the trade.
I mean, it's not that I don't care.
Well, no, I understand.
People are going to be like,
I'm talking about football. I'm sorry, guys. I'm talking about football purely. Doug, I didn't get to see what you thought on Twitter about the hypothetical.
Well, I mean, hypothetically, I'd be in on it. I don't know from our organization, if you will. I don't know if they can take the extra heat on what he's got going on. if we're just strictly talking about his performance on the field and what it would take to get him, I would give up several first-round picks in Daron Payne. Certainly.
Yeah, and
I mean, there aren't many players on this team outside of Terry and I guess Chase. I mean, Sweat is the better player right now, but I'm not sure that yeah. I mean, I think it's Payne anyway, because I don't think, I think they'd rather pay Tim Settle. I'm not sure you can afford to do all of it, so it makes sense. And he's a winner. Listen, no matter what else you have to say about Deshaun Watson, what you can't say is that kid's not a winner, because he is everything you want in a quarterback on the field.
Yeah, exactly. And that was one of the reasons when it first got brought up about him wanting to trade a while back earlier in the winter, I was like, yes, because the times that I say no to putting up a bulk of draft picks, high value draft picks up, is for a player like RG3, because I don't want to make that mistake again of trading all those assets for a quarterback that needs weapons around him, that needs a sustainable offense and consistent offense in order for him to be successful. Deshaun Watson is the complete opposite of that. We've seen what he's been with the Houston Texans. He doesn't have anything else there. He has been the only one, besides DeAndre Hopkins, of course. He was probably the only one you could say. But you know that he did well with nobody else around him. He can still contribute. And that's why I am comfortable with giving up those value assets for Deshaun Watson. Now, the off-the-field stuff, I do believe that if anyone is in the position to be able to control and to be able to get through a scenario in which Deshaun Watson would go there and all the legal repercussions, everything, I think it's Washington at this point. I mean, him and Dan Snyder almost have a comparable situation going on with allegations and all the lawsuits happening. And so it's almost like this isn't an organization that will judge him. And also, this is an organization that loves quarterbacks. I mean, Dan Snyder rolls out the red carpet for these quarterbacks when he does. I don't know why Deshaun Watson wouldn't want to, besides the income tax. Of course you'd want to go to Florida and be in Miami and sit on the beach. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, you hit the nail right on.
He's got a name trade clause, so he gets to decide pretty much where he goes.
He can choose where he wants to go. So
yeah, and that
pretty much it really comes up to him.
Yeah, I know, and I understand that, but my whole point is, like, at this point in the season, we're almost halfway through. You shouldn't really be picking and choosing where you go. If Deshaun Watson's the winner and gamer that we just talked about, Big Doug, he's itching to get back, and he doesn't really care where it is, to be honest, as long as it's soon and it can make him successful. Because I feel like they can recruit Deshaun Watson no problem, given with what they have in the building right now. It's more than what he had in Houston. Now, our next question is from Andy Burrows in the UK. Oi! And the DC Tweet Team podcast. Doug, I'll start this one with you. You have 3 wishes, and they all are involving the Washington football team. Let's just say we're the genie. Andy Burrows is the genie. He's come out of his genie lamp. You have 3 wishes, and they all involve the Washington football team. What are they?
Let's see. I got 3 wishes for the Washington football team. Well, I wish they'd have a competent owner. I wish they'd have a franchise quarterback. And I wish they'd give me season tickets for life.
That's a good one. That third one's a good one.
I absolutely love that one. What about you, Hall?
Well, he hit definitely one of mine. I wish they had a franchise quarterback. Wish number 2 would be, I'm not even going to go Super Bowl. I just wish they would at least get to a NFC Conference Championship game within the next 5 years as one of my wishes. And wish number 3 would be, I got to almost kind of go with Big Doug. I wish that I could get sideline access at every home game.
That's cool. The sideline access would be cool, but I will say I wish I could get the TV camera angle that the announcers do, the color analysts, because apparently they get like the right behind center view of everything going on. I would love to be able to watch the game in that way.
That'd be pretty tight.
Now, the 3 wishes for me. 1, I wish DeAndre Hopkins would be on this team. Him combined with Terry McLaurin and Logan Thomas, I feel like this would be a weapons setup that nobody could be able to defend, along with J.D. McKissick and Antonio Gibson. And then 2, I wish Joe Gibbs was a stakeholder and owner of this football team so he could kind of direct things and be able to have his eyesight and his fingerprint on everything, because everything that guy touches, it turns to gold. And then number 3, I want Aaron Rodgers on the team. Could you imagine Aaron Rodgers, DeAndre Hopkins, and Terry McLaurin on the same field? Whew. I don't think any people would stop us. That's just me, though.
Sounds like a Madden team right there.
Those are mine. Those are mine. You guys can have the season tickets. I'll be cool watching Aaron Rodgers, D-Hop, and Terry McLaurin tear shit up. Now, Doug, I know this is a question for you, and I know that you'll have a detailed one for this. And this question comes from our biggest fan, the Colonel, and he wants to know, after this 24-10 loss to the Green Bay Packers, after falling to 2-5, now what?
Well, now you go to a Denver team that's easily beatable. I mean, I guess not easily. None of them were easily beatable by this franchise we got because Denver's saying the same thing.
Right.
But technically, this is a team that you should be able to get up on. You got a bye week. We got to get healthy, right? I mean, we've been healthy for many years. We've been spoiled. We're really not very healthy this year. Health would be important. And then, you got 2 more games that you can get here out of the next 3. I mean, I don't think I'm putting my money on them beating the Bucks, but Raiders maybe, right? If Russell Wilson isn't back for Monday night against Seattle,
yep,
maybe. I mean, that's a game you'd like to think you could get in on. And then I'm missing one. There's one more game in there that is
Carolina,
right?
Yep.
And you put that in the, sure, why not? And then you get to the home stretch.
Yeah.
So we got to get healthy. And we got to get some young kids, up to speed, and we got to get communication in the back end.
Now what, Colonel? I think now is when they start connecting the dots. I was on Rio's pod earlier, and I talked about how this team, they showed that they could compete, that they could hang, that they could do well with the Packers, but they couldn't put the exclamation point on it. They couldn't get the points to really put themselves on that level. So now what? The confidence is building with this football team. Earlier against the Bills, you saw them get blown out, and they were like, we shouldn't even be in the NFL, and they kind of played like it, to be perfectly honest. Against the Packers and against the Chiefs, you can kind of see that they had ways to win. They are building this up. Jamin Davis is getting better. Cole Holcomb is doing a great job. Benjamin St-Juste is starting to get some confidence under his belt. This is a growing team, and you're starting to finally see it. Just like last season. They were 2-5 last season. I think they're starting to see we're going to turn the corner here, guys. I really, truly believe that. So now what? We turn the corner, and we start looking for the back end of the season when things start to click. I truly believe that.
Now what? Well, Big Doug said it. We're on to Denver, Bill Belichick style. But in the long term, definitely got to get healthy. I definitely think that obviously I don't like to look ahead because it's week to week, obviously, in the NFL.
Right.
And obviously looking ahead with this team, you never know what you're going to get week to week. But if you
Cam
look at
Newton
the next,
could be our quarterback next week.
hey, anything's possible
Right.
at this point. But if you look at the next 5-game stretch, we got Denver, bye week, Tampa
Bucks.
Bay,
Yep.
the Las Vegas, Seattle, and Carolina. When it really boils down to it, outside of Tampa, and if you you can throw Las Vegas in there because Derek Carr is playing out of his mind right now. 3 of those games are pretty much winnable games. And again, depending on how it goes in Las Vegas, you can get a good Derek Carr one day, you might get a bad Derek Carr on the down day. Who knows? But
Trenchcoat
yeah.
Mafia Derek Carr.
Yeah. So definitely looking ahead before that home stretch of all those division games. If we could just pull out 3 out of the next 5, which I know sounds ridiculously crazy, given how the season's gone so far. But like you said, the defenses, especially the defensive line, is kind of gaining a little bit more confidence. They're starting to, like Ron was talking about, they're starting to rush in sync and kind of like rush with each other.
Yeah.
The back end is kind of pairing with the rush as well. So and then the offense, obviously, if the offense can just muster up 21 to 24 points a game, we might have a shot in a couple of these games. But again, what are we going to get from Taylor Heineke in the offense is my biggest question going forward. But right now, we just got to worry about Denver and trying to stop that double-headed monster of Melvin Gordon and Javonte Williams.
Yep, that's the number 1 goal heading into next week. Whoa, what happened to my voice there? Now, going to you, Doug, the Colonel wants to know, what does 2-5 and being as bad as the losses have been, what does this mean for some of the high-priced free agents like Brandon Sheriff, Matt Ioannidis, and Landon Collins, to name the start?
Well, I mean, Brandon Sheriff's out, right? I mean, if he did it right. And let me say this real quick, because I don't think it gets said enough. They paid Brandon Sheriff somewhere around 75, 80 million for his 5-6 years here. Do the math. It's spot on. I mean, he got a good chunk while he was here, and Washington got a premier guard at about $14.5 million a season.
Yeah.
And I think this is going to become a trend for first round draft picks, right? You can get the 5th-year option, then you get 2 franchise tags, everybody's happy, and you move on. And if Brandon was healthy all this year, they might, again, they tried to pay him.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's not that they didn't try to pay him, but he's not healthy. And Schweitzer, have you seen the drop off? Because I haven't.
No.
So, right. I think we know about Schweitzer. I don't know if Ioannidis wants to take a cut to stay. You know, I'm sure they'd love to have him, but again, like we were mentioning earlier, you know, they've got Deron Payne. I don't think they'll pay him, but if they do, they've got him. To me, it makes more sense to pay Settle, kind of the same Ioannidis contract from 3 years ago.
Mm.
And then what was the other one who was the last one you mentioned?
Landon Collins.
Well,
yeah, that's a great answer.
That goes unsaid.
Yes, absolutely. What does it mean for them, especially guys like Landon Collins and Brandon Sheriff? It's really, really bad for them, what's happening right now, because Brandon, especially, given in his absence, Wes Schweitzer has done really well, and Wes Schweitzer is getting pennies compared to Brandon Sheriff, so it kind of tells you they could cut ties, they can move on from you with paying less money. Same thing with Landon Collins. His snaps going down periodically, week by week by week, is showing them this isn't the guy for you, especially not at the price that he's being paid. And it's just going to show at the end of the season, they're going to be walking away from him. They won't be getting re-signed. But Matt Ioannidis, I think he had the highest PFF score of all the defenders yesterday, I think with an 81.9, I believe it was. So he's been playing really, really well yesterday. I know he only had 2 assisted tackles, but man, was he a force in the backfield. So I think he's going to be here for a long time. They're going to continue to try to get that bargain price as much as they can. So for the other 2 guys, they're screwed, essentially, because it's always a process. They're always analyzing, looking at this team and how they can get better. So even like we saw, even guys like Morgan Moses, who had career years that we thought were bona fide to come back and start, they let go of. So those high-priced guys, you better be ready. They're headhunting. Last question from the Colonel, and I'll start this with you, Hall, because this is about your boy. He's been thinking about this all week. He wants to know, what do you think of Lake Lewis's analysis of Antonio Gibson not being a workhorse back, and what would be the alternatives?
Yeah, this has been a topic that's been brought up a lot on the local sports talk radio. I think that if you want to think about like long-term wise, is he a workhorse back? Probably not. Has he proven that he can be a workhorse guy in a game-to-game basis? 20 rushes week 1 against the Chargers. I think he had 20 rushes against the Falcons or one of those Saints, maybe one of those.
He had 20 against the Saints, yeah.
The Saints, yeah. So he can definitely tote the rock 15 to 20, 22 times a game. Now, obviously, this coming into this year, he's had a multitude of injuries, banged up here and there, but he still plays on Sundays. But at the end of the day, is he a workhorse guy? No, but I don't think he needs to be a workhorse guy because he's a guy that can get out to open space and change field position for you at the drop of a dime. Look what he did against Buffalo on that screen pass. So I just think that as long as they're giving him between 15 to 18 touches a game, I think he'll be great. And then if they want to mix in some J.D. McKissick, maybe if they want to mix in some Patterson throughout the rest of the year, maybe going into the next year as well, cool. But I just think at the end of the day, he needs to touch a little bit more in the passing game, and yeah, he'll be good.
I don't think it's that crazy for Lake Lewis to say that because essentially Antonio Gibson is coming from college where he was a wide receiver, moving him into running back, and expect him to be a workhorse back right away. I think it's kind of insane, and I don't think he is one. I think Lake is right about that. And what is the alternatives? Is it running back by committee? Having Jarrett Patterson get more touches, have J.D. McKissick get in the role more, and just have that rotation so AG stays healthy. And if he excels in it, great, give him more snaps. If not, let's keep the rotation going. Let's keep these guys as healthy as possible. What do you think about that, Doug?
Well, I'll say this as far as Gibson goes. We had Brendan Darr on the show today, who produces Kevin Sheehan's show. And he was saying that injury for McKissick is a whole lot closer to to Gibson is a whole lot closer to a broken shin than it is a shin bruise. Okay. You know what I mean? Like, it's not a real deep shin bruise. It's damn near broken. So, and he's only practicing 1 day a week. Yeah. You know what I mean? And the other thing is, I don't know, I don't know if there is such a thing as a workhorse back anymore. And if there is, it damn sure isn't on a team that's down by 14 points every game. You know what I mean? Like, they just can't feed him the rock that way.
Yeah. You're absolutely right about that, and that is a defense that would solve a lot of arguments regarding running game.
Before we move on from this Antonio Gibson subject, I want to get y'all's opinion on this. Why is it that you think, obviously he was a receiver in Memphis, he was an explosive player in Memphis. Why do you think that once he got to the NFL and like Scott Turner and this offense is not really using him in the passing game, like he's not really split out wide as much. He's not really running like legit receiver routes like everyone thought they would kind of use him as. When he was going to be, people talked about him as like they're going to use him in that kind of Christian McCaffrey role, but I don't see a lot of the Christian McCaffrey role. I see a lot of let's just line him up in the backfield and hit the hole.
Yeah, they gave McKissick. McKissick has got the McCaffrey role, if anything.
Yeah,
which is fine because McKissick's great. I like him. He's been the better back this year. I don't think that's like a stretch.
Yeah, I don't think they really need to because they have J.D. McKissick. You know, Antonio Gibson is a great receiver, obviously, and that's where he excels at coming from college. But J.D. McKissick has shown that he's adapted to the pro game. He's great out of the backfield, a great pass blocker. I think a lot of it has to do with Antonio Gibson's pass blocking. He picked up a great one on the Terry McLaurin touchdown. Taylor would not have gotten that ball off to Terry in the end zone if Antonio Gibson doesn't come across the line, the scrimmage and be able to get that blocker before he gets to Taylor, because he would have been sacked right away. And I think that has a lot to do with it with AG. And then the injuries this year, I think, kind of played a huge part in that as well. They've been kind of combining them like 1-2, 1-2. One gets heavy one week, the other gets a heavy the next week. They've been kind of with that rotation, but I think.
And real quick, Turner said they went to the pro day there, and when they got there looking for receivers, they said, as soon as we saw him, they said, well, this guy's a running back.
Yeah.
And that's why he really intrigued them. And I really think this goes back to this year 2 rebuild that nobody wants to talk about. I mean, they are really kind of using these first couple of years to coach him into being a running back. What do you have, 30 running back snaps in college?
Yeah.
I think people think, it's not Madden. You can't just switch guys' positions and expect them to be able to have a natural feel like that. You talking about the goal line earlier. He runs right up the middle. Well, if he had just looked, Leno had the outside.
That's what I said.
If he bounces that, it's a touchdown.
Easy. I mean, seriously, Doug.
That's a guy that doesn't know how to be a running back yet. He's still learning.
And that was my whole point about his vision as a running back, because like the way I was looking at it, if your momentum takes you off that left side of Leno's shoulder, that defender does not have enough time and to be able to create speed to stop your momentum. If he would have ran left around that line of scrimmage, he would have gotten that touchdown. And one guy commented on Twitter was like, well, the coaching staff earlier in the year, he bounced a run outside in the red zone and it got coughed out, it fumbled, and that might be one reason why he didn't, because they've been harping on him not to do that. So that is a good defense. I will agree with you there. Now, our next question is from Orange Crush 92, our guy, with another fantastic question. Doug, I'm going to stick this with you. Be honest about Jamin Davis and our linebacking core. Where are they at right now in terms of production, and where do they need to be to satisfy the fan base and their team?
Well, they're not going to satisfy the fan base. Because that's not going to happen. It's certainly not going to happen for the first round linebacker who a lot of people want a quarterback. And I got to say, I was in that camp. So for those of us that had hoped that they'd make a move, we're just waiting, because that's really what we're doing with Jamin Davis. Again, we talk about Gibson being a young guy, learning how to play. I mean, how many snaps did Jamin Davis actually play at linebacker in college? It was not many, because he didn't get on the field, I don't think, until his senior year.
The coaching staff loved the guy right before Jamin. And when he graduated as a senior, that's when Jamin stepped in.
Yeah. And so he's got, again, I mean, they drafted him strictly knowing that in 2 or 3 years, they could have a really stud linebacker. Again, but if you draft a guy in the first round, the fan base expects, instant satisfaction.
Yeah.
And that's not what you get. And Cole Holcomb's been good.
Yeah. And
but again, that's a guy with 3 years experience, and John Bostic was the one calling the plays. So this is really the first year of Holcomb calling plays. So again, really young team that we forget, I think, sometimes is so young.
And it goes to your point there because I saw people putting up little videos of collection of Jock, Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah for the Browns, and talking about that and how much he was a better pick at 19. And look, and now he's on IR. So look, talking about materialistic things and what fan bases love, they want to see the good plays. You could have 30 bad snaps, but you get one pick six, dude, they'll talk about how good you are. Look at Trayvon Diggs, for example. That's what everyone's talking about. So with Jamin Davis, what is he going to have to do to kind of satisfy the fan base? I think he gets a pick six. I think the everything stops. I think we're going to be back to normal, and if he's high on the tackle chain, he's going to be fine. He's going to be good to go. Cole Holcomb has been phenomenal this season. I called him out after I think the second game, saying I needed him to be the consistent kind of confident linebacker this defense needed, and he has done that thus far. He's been involved with a bunch of the turnovers and the sacks. He's done a great job thus far. What about you, Paul?
Yeah, Cole has progressed well since he's gotten here from day one.
Oh, and Landon has done great.
Yeah, Landon had his best game of the season this past game. Playing
26 snaps.
Yeah, playing less. Less is more, so that's cool. Cole Holcomb has been decently good this year. I'm not going to say he's been, like, great, but he's definitely held the linebacking core together for the most part. You mentioned Jamin Davis. Like you said, I think that we all thought from the highlights reel and what we saw on tape, like, okay, this guy in front of this behind the defensive line is going to step in and just be able to run sideline to sideline and make tackles. But obviously you see, like y'all said, it takes a little bit of time from that college to NFL level, the speed of the game, the size of the guys you're going against, the formations you're going to see you go against, the athletes you're going to go against. But I think that, like you guys mentioned, maybe he's starting to come on more and more. Hopefully, like I said, by that last, 5 division game stretch, you'll start to see him flash more on the screen.
Yeah.
Right now, you're seeing a little bit of flashes. There's still a little bit more bad than there is good, but the bad and the good starting to level out. So eventually, once it gets to here, I think that you're going to see. So you're going to start to see more Jamin Davis. You're going to start to see more flashes of Jamin Davis, and that's not going to satisfy the fan base. Obviously, like you said, he's going to have to be like Ray Lewis level for them to be satisfied. But at the end of the day, I think that we have a good one. You just got to give it time.
Yeah, absolutely.
And they like Jamin Davis the person.
Yeah.
I mean, I know that doesn't wow and excite the fan base, but that was another reason why he goes really high. I can't speak to any of the other guys, but I know that they were super high on Jamin Davis, the culture character guy.
Yeah, and the coach obviously puts a lot into character whenever making these decisions, and that's why I've always said I trust them and what their decisions are. Now, to wrap this up, we have one last question. That is from our guy, Tony Franchise. And, Doug, I'm going to go with you for this one because this is probably the best person to go to with your Therapy Mondays. He wants to know, I want to hold strong, but I'm starting to question Ron Rivera. Is it me, or does he seem to be coming off very complacent in these post-game press conferences?
I asked Brendan about that today because, he's been around for a whole lot of coaching interviews. And he was saying, well, Ron's not quite like Jay. He's not that buddy with you, but he's not also quite as tight as Shanahan was. And I said, well, it feels like Ron's getting upset as the weeks go on. He said, well, I said, maybe Charlotte was an easier market, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah. The DC market, albeit not Philly or New York, is a tough market. And Shanahan found the same thing when he got here.
Yeah.
So listen, you know what Ron's got? Ron's got the Gibbs endorsement. So, I mean, if you think Ron's going anywhere after a year and a half in which they are building a roster and have no quarterback, I took a look at the top 12 teams. So we put a list out, in order of the teams today. You know what the one thing they all had in common was? Premier quarterback. Premier quarterback. You can't do it without that. And I don't care if Ron wants to pivot and do a different kind of rebuild where they build the roster out. And I've said this, I'm on record a bunch saying this. I think he's done it the other way, with the number 1 overall pick in Cam Newton. Not many people get the second bite at the apple, and I'm sure he's trying it a different way.
Yeah.
I'm sure he always said to himself, if I ever get to do this the other way around, I'm going to build a team out and slap a quarterback in there. It's not sexy for a team that has been starving for quarterback play.
Yeah, and look, I know the media, for example, look, I have a certain mindset about the media. They're victim heroes, okay? Essentially, whenever something is directed at them, they're the victims. Whenever something is exposed, they are the heroes for exposing it. They could talk crap about anybody, but as soon as you question them, they are the victims, and you can't ever do that. That being said, in this instance, I wish that Ron Rivera, because the media last week saying that Ron Rivera was very coming at them, was very aggressive, kind of attack style, right, kind of thing. If the media has a problem with the way Ron Rivera is doing things, especially the fans as well, start doing what Bill Belichick does. Answer one-word questions and just get the heck out of there. And then you'll slowly start to see people say, well, why isn't Ron giving us more? And then they'll start complaining about that. So, look, I know Ron is the way he is in his press conferences, but the questions that they're asking him, you have to imagine they're essentially like a slight dig. Every question is a slight dig at the team, and they're asking him to talk crap about the team. He's not going to do that. He's going to do it behind closed doors. He's going to talk to guys one-on-one instead of doing it to the media behind their back, like ganging up on them. He's never going to do that to one of his guys, and I respect him for it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of the same way with you. I mean, even if you go back to last year, like I know a lot of people always call into 106 talking about he's just on the sideline. He has no emotion. He's not yelling, blah, blah, blah.
He had throat cancer last year. I'm sure he can't yell.
Well, not even just that. If you think back to when we first hired him a year and a half ago, what was the big video going around?
Yeah.
Around all Twitter, social media, about him digging in his guys in Carolina, digging in there, you know what, and then in the locker room. And getting them guys hyped up and fired up. And guess what? They came out and wiped the floor clean with whoever they were playing in the second half of that game. You don't think he's doing that in the locker room? Like, come on, man. You don't think he's actually, like, behind closed doors, getting on these guys, coaching them up, like, getting on them, blah, 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 stuff like that? Just because he's not on the sidelines going crazy like I can't even think of a coach off the top of my head that goes crazy right now. But he's not going crazy like a Bill O'Brien type or like a like he's kind of just stoic like Bill Belichick, weathering the ship, weathering the storm. So with all that being said, he does call guys out. He does have emotion. With the media as well, if you think back, like I said, he called out the linebackers and pretty much Dwayne Haskins through the media last year. But at the same time, like you said, he's not going to be a guy that's going to call out his coaches or his players through the media. He's going to do it behind closed doors.
And one thing, do you guys have to all take into consideration, when a coach yells on the sideline, if you do that every single game, if you yell all during the game, your voice and your anger and what you say has less assurance, has less validity with the players that you're talking to. So if a coach who never yells all of a sudden starts ripping into your ass and starts yelling at you, telling you what to do, you're like, oh God, I must have messed up. I got to do something well here. It's by design by Ron Rivera, and it's a genius way of doing it because, like you said, that one locker room speech he's given to them, they were probably like, holy crap, we got to get our crap together. The coach is pissed. And that's the reason why, because he always stays quiet until he 100% needs to. And last question for us. I think this is a great one, Doug. What was worse, the Gus Frerotte headbutt or the Taylor pre-Lambeau leap?
People are hating on that Lambeau leap. I mean,
that's funny.
He was in the end zone, dude.
how many chances, you know what I mean, are you going to get to play in Lambeau? Hating on a guy that grew up as a Brett Favre fan with his dad, you know, who had passed away. That was a big game for him up there in Green Bay. If the man wants to hop in the stadium, good on him. You know what I mean? Because chances are he's not going to have that opportunity ever again. So, hey, can I mention something real quick about the last thing that we were talking about that I found was interesting? The other thing, we had Chris Baker's been coming on Mondays, and he said it's not necessarily a coaching thing, but they don't have anybody on the field right now who has the veteran leadership to be able to say, like a London Fletcher. That's what he was talking about today. He said, you know, the coaches would say something, and if it wasn't right or it sounded dumb, then London would just be like, no, that ain't it. Line up over there, do this. This is where we're at. And he said, you know, and then all of a sudden they'd be running that exact play. London would have us there. We don't have that guy right now that can just take a hold, you know, of some jerseys and have the respect for the rest of the team. Just say, yeah, okay, right on, I got you. That's what we're missing. A lot.
Totally agree, and I said that on, I think last week, either on Monday or Friday, I said it, but I thought that it should be Cam Curl because I didn't think Landon Collins was doing enough to be able to grab that title and to be able to have that confidence with the team. But I think Cam Curl does. I know he's a very quiet guy, but William Jackson's not going to do it. Kendall's not going to do it. Neither is Benji. Who else is there? It's got to be Cam Curl. Everyone else is kind of too young or defensive line, essentially, and they're not in the place to be able to do that.
Not even just that. There's not even really like that kind of that established guy that's been on the team for many, many, many years.
Right.
Like there's been so much turnover since Ron's got here.
The only person is John Allen or Deron Payne, really.
Exactly. And look, I know John Allen probably is that guy, but again, at the end of the day, you can only do so much, you know.
Well, and it's not like John Allen can see like the sets and the formation, be able to put guys in position when he's got his hand in the dirt. You know what I mean? All right, thank you.
Paul Holcomb or Davis eventually.
Yes, you would love that. So I think Davis should be that, but it's too early for him. You know, kind of that natural progression as a leader, being able to have that comfortability with older vets. It's going to take some time. I think Luke Kuechly picked it up immediately, but I'm not sure if Jamin's going to be able to. All right, everyone, that's going to wrap us up for this show. One special thank you to you, Mr. Big Doug, from the Big Douglas Show. If you please plug your show real quick, your podcast, and when you record and who you record with.
Well, first of all, I was pumped to get the call up to the big time today. First time up here on the Burgundy.
Your name is Big Doug, so there is no big time.
Super excited about this. Now, it's the Big Doug Show. We're on every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Big Pooh is with me every Monday, and then we usually try to get a beat reporter that covers the other team to do us an opposition Wednesday. Try to get us somebody local on Fridays to do a little preview show. Unfortunately, Mondays have been misery Mondays instead of magnificent Mondays, but we're hoping to turn that around. And, check the show out on YouTube. We get it out to the podcast, but kind of doing more YouTube these days.
Yeah, and make sure you guys go subscribe and listen to the Big Douglas Show. It was one of the 4 finalists for the award last season for Best Fan Podcast. I've said this many, many times, Big Doug, you are on the Mount Rushmore of Washington pods. Just want to let you know that. You deserve it. You and Big Pooh with everything you guys do. Obviously, us in the same sphere, we know how much goes into this kind of podcasting thing, and you do a great job at it, Doug.
Yes, well, I appreciate that, and appreciate you guys. You guys are it. You're the reason that we do this. So I appreciate you showing the rest of us that it's possible.
You're the reason, Doug. You're the reason. Man. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in. We'll see you guys again on Friday. Special thanks to you, Big Doug, again, for being able to come on. Dude, I absolutely love your thoughts on the Washington football team. Humble us down a little bit, down-to-earth opinion. All right, everybody, we'll see you guys on Friday. Washington football. Woo! Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Kyle. I just wanted to say thank you so much for watching. And if you liked what you saw, make sure you hit the subscribe button and the notification bell. That way you get notified when anything new is uploaded to the channel. Also, we just launched theburgundyzone.com. You can go there and find all of our latest news, articles, and the latest episodes that are uploaded. Again, we also have the Discord chat server, where all of our VIP folks are in, like Andy Burrows, Scott Hartley, Sergio Martin is in there as well. Don't miss out on the Discord chat server. Go and check that out. Until next time, everybody, Washington football. Woo!